Let's now get some reaction. I'm joined by Professor Dirk Kotzé, who's a political analyst. A very good afternoon to you, Professor. Thank you for your time. The power grabbers are not for the people of Johannesburg. That's according to former Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse, who says that the DA is not willing to simply throw in the towel on the governing of the city of Johannesburg. What are your thoughts as you've been assessing and watching this battle for the city playing out?
Yes, this is obviously for the DA a very delicate and a very uncomfortable situation at the moment, because first of all, it's a reflection on to what extent they could keep the coalition together, and secondly, whether there's some differences within the DA about the allocation of important positions in the coalition. And I think that's what she tried to address in this broadcasting that she did. To say that she is not on her way out or even leaving the DA, because I think there's some speculation about that she might go to Action SA or any other party. Those things she didn't, or she tried to address by saying, well, she's still firmly where she was at the time before she was removed from her office. I think at the same time what we are seeing is they're trying to consolidate also around situations, for example, in Tshwane, where there's a spillover of what happened in Johannesburg is most possibly going to happen. The same in Ekurhuleni, but Tshwane has its own dynamics. So I think this is what they are trying to prevent from happening. We know that the chairperson of the Federal Council, Helen Zille, has become now directly involved in the situation. So I think it becomes highly complex for all of them of how to maneuver through this situation.
The speculation perhaps is not without merit on whether or not she's on her way out. Of course, her saying that she's not at loggerheads with the party and there's no rift within the DA. But looking at the track record, Professor, just looking at the number of black leaders who've resigned from the party and some of the reasons that they've put forward, what is your sense of that dynamic, especially when critics are saying that Dr. Mpho Phalatse has not been given room to maneuver in making decisions within the party?
Yes, that is certainly a risk for the DA, and I think this is what she tried to address now. But, you know, one day in politics is a very long period, actually, or a week in politics, and changes can happen. So it's absolutely no guarantee that this is where she's going to be. And when the Action SA did the same type of press encounter with the media, they suggested to some extent something to the effect that there is differences of opinion within the DA, and especially coming from the national leadership, and she responded to that specifically in today's statement. And I think that is where the possible drift will be. Also, again, depending on what's going to happen in Tshwane, because the same issue to some extent is present in the situation in Tshwane with respect to the mayor here, but for other reasons. And I think what is the outcome of the process in Tshwane will to some extent, or maybe very much, depend on what will be the future of former Mayor Phalatse.
At the same time, while all of this is playing out, how then are the city's residents affected by all of this?
Well, you know, strictly speaking, they should not be affected, but they possibly are, and they definitely have an experience of crisis or of a turnover in government. But there should, strictly speaking, be a stable group of officials who are performing the functions and providing the services for the council, which does not depend on the councillors and who's in government in the first instance. Government is more of an oversight body at local government level and should not be involved in micromanagement of services and of decision-making at the administrative or at the official level. They are more there to provide guidance in terms of policy and of oversight and accountability from the side of the officials. But the real work must be done by the officials. So the service delivery, whether it is an ANC-led government or a DA-led government or a multi-party government, it's not supposed to matter. And I think this is what we hopefully should start to see also when there's turnovers of coalition governments, that it should not necessarily have a direct impact on the day-to-day functioning of councils, because if it does, then it means that they don't function actually properly.
The ANC is confident that Phalatse won't wear the mayoral chain again, and if that is indeed the case, of course, depending on the outcome of this court process, how important is it for the ANC to really make a difference and correct whatever wrongs of the past during this political climate?
I think the first task and challenge for the ANC is to form a proper coalition, because they are in exactly the same position as the DA in terms of forming a coalition. It's also going to be a big coalition, a very clumsy coalition. It's also going to include parties that they cannot necessarily trust under all circumstances. And I think that will be the first major challenge, possibly the biggest challenge for the DA government now, is how to establish that coalition. Secondly, it is how to turn around the negative sentiments that have developed, the public sentiments or the public opinion about the ANC and ANC service delivery in the metropolitan of Johannesburg. Because it will be essential for them, now that there's also a new premier in the province, that they must put all of these together in order to make the best possible impression for the next election in 2024. Because the province has a majority at the moment of only one single seat in the provincial legislature. It has a majority of 50.12%. It is the slimmest majority you can imagine. So they are very close to losing control over the province. And therefore, these are opportunities for them in order to turn around the public image, which means that they must outperform themselves in terms of services in order to do it. So they have no second chance after last year's election in order to do it. If they don't achieve this, then I think they will be punished in the next election.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Political analyst Professor Dirk Kotzé speaking there. Of course, reaction on the back of former Joburg City Mayor Dr. Mpho Phalatse's media briefing a short while ago.